Joined by former BlueClaws manager and Phillies third base coach Dusty Wathan. Dusty, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Great to see you. Does it feel like 15 years? Hard to believe it's been 15 years since you were here.
I know it's crazy. The only reason I know it's been 15 years is my youngest son Gus was born just after the season then. He reminds me of that he was never actually in Lakewood.
That's true. That's true. And then Huck was the bat boy for much of the summer. I'm sure that part of the whole season was very special for you.
That's correct. Yeah, he was. That was a fun season. I think he was about 6 years old or so, 5 or 6, and got to travel around with me all over the East Coast and be the bat boy. And we spent some great quality time together and had a lot of fun.
And there's a great picture somewhere of you and him after the championship clincher on the field when he was about 6 and you guys had the trophy there.
Yeah, every once in a while somebody sends it to me, so it was a good time. I got to do it close to home. Everybody else had to get on a bus and go all the way back to New Jersey. I got to drive an hour and a half and go home to Charlotte. Yeah, it was a fun time, and glad he was there and my family was there as well.
So that year, 2009, you had just finished playing two years prior. That was your second year as a minor league manager. So you were pretty young in the process. What do you remember most about that season? Which was just as you kind of kickstarted your post playing career.
Well, I was really lucky to have a great staff around me, Bob Malachy and Greg Legg. I mean, Legger had been doing it for years, had managed for years, so somebody to really lean on for advice and stuff. But we had great players. Great players make great managers or good managers, and we had a bunch of guys get to the big leagues. I think Travis d'Arnaud is still playing, and I think Diekman's still playing. Well, he played last year, so I don't know about this year. But there's some guys that I still see every once in a while. I've seen Trevor May a couple of times. He's in the podcast and video world doing stuff like that. So it was a good time with a lot of good players. And I guess the biggest thing I could say is I was so close to playing still that I kind of knew what I wanted from a manager when I was playing. I wanted him to be honest with me and open and tell me the truth and hit me between the eyes if something was good or bad. And that's what I try to do with the players all the time, as much as you can. There's some things you realize that you have to keep in your back pocket. The organization doesn't want certain things out, but as much as you could say to a guy and be honest with him, I think that's all they want, good or bad.
Anthony Gose is still playing too. He's pitching now. He actually just signed with the Mets, so maybe you'll see him
Oh, did he?
this summer. Yeah. So he's still pitching, which is cool because I remember when he came up, he could have been drafted as a pitcher, and he told the teams that if you draft me as a pitcher, I'm going to go to college. And the Phillies said, "All right, come play center field." And he
Yeah,
was as key for that team as anybody.
that's right. Yeah, no, I mean, Anthony was great. Haven't seen him in a few years. I did, now that you mentioned that, see that he was pitching. Um, and he got to the big leagues a couple times this year with the Cleveland, right?
Yeah, and he had gotten to the big leagues as a pitcher with I had it up before with I want to say with Cleveland the last couple of years. He was pitching with Toronto too. I mean, not that many guys can say that they made it to the big league as a position player and a pitcher. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Anthony, tremendous talent. I mean, obviously, I think he had 70 something stolen bases for us that year. Played a tremendous center field. Was a big leader on our team, on and off the field. Challenging guys when they need to be challenged. And I really enjoyed my time around him. He was a strong-willed, strong-minded young man at the time. I think he was probably about 18, 19 years old. So he's been doing it a while, and that's pretty neat.
I know you were very close to Travis d'Arnaud, and you were a catcher, and obviously he was a catcher, and you kind of helped mold his career, which has turned into just a phenomenal career. He's still playing, he just signed with the Angels. What do you remember about 19, 20-year-old Travis? As he now he's 34, 35 or so. He's had a great career, won a World Series.
Yeah, Travis was a guy that you knew from the beginning was going to have a successful career. A lot of talent, very good leader. Guys kind of tended to follow him, and that's a tough thing to develop in a player. You kind of are born with it, and you could see at that young age that Travis was going to be that kind of guy. And then you were just hoping that the skills kept developing, and he ends up where he is now. I didn't think there was probably much of a doubt that he would make it to the big leagues. But to have the career that he's had over 10 years in the major leagues, World Series, as you said, you never know when that's going to happen and the opportunity that you get. But he made the most of his first opportunity, and then and he had to bang around a little bit in the big leagues as a backup and things. And I remember that year he had to go to Tampa and played about a half a year after getting released by somebody, the Mets or something, and then really found himself in Atlanta and has finishing his career off hopefully he finishes it off in his hometown. He's in LA. He's from Lakewood, California. So pretty cool to see, and very proud of the guy he's become and the father and husband he is.
You had a long run, great run as a minor league manager before getting to the big leagues. What's something that for a young coach or a young aspiring big league coach or manager, did you learn as a minor league manager that you couldn't learn anywhere else? Like, what's that priceless experience that you get, as a minor league manager working your way through the system, and you manage that, at every level?
Well, I think you realize that you have to be uh, good at a lot of things. You have to know how to write scouting reports. You have to know how to scout other players. You have to know how to interact with players, and you're just with the players a lot more in the minor leagues. You're on long bus rides. I know it's changed a little bit now to where you're in one place for 6 days at a time, but you're around the guys a lot more. I think that's a big thing. But I think the biggest thing that guys have to realize is that you have to remember how hard this game is and was for you as a player. Most guys have played a little bit at some level, so they know how hard it is because if you were really, really good, you probably aren't managing in the minor leagues or you're not coaching anymore. You're sitting on a porch somewhere telling old stories if you're a really good player. So there's a bunch of guys like me that were just good enough to hang around for a little while and become a minor league manager and now a big league coach. But I think the biggest thing is just be open. Treat these kids like you want to be treated. I think myself having kids, I look at those guys that I was around a lot as my kids and very proud to follow their careers and to see them have success. I think it's a lot like having your own kids. You're around them so much. You're with them 6, 7, 8 months in a row every single day, basically. So I think you just want to treat them with respect and treat them kind of like your kids, where they're not always going to love you, but in the long run, they're going to look back and say thanks for maybe some of the tough love. And you don't want them to be your best friend, but you want to put them on a path that's going to lead them to success.
I know your father was involved at so many different roles with in the Royals organization when you were growing up. At what point in your playing career did you kind of start to plot out a potential coaching and managing career?
Well, to be honest, just signing a professional contract, my goal was just to play long enough to get some credibility to become a coach in pro ball, and it turned into a longer than I thought it was going to be career. I thought it'd be a year or two, and I'd be done, and I'd be coaching somewhere in rookie ball or something, and hopefully bide my time and work my way up through a system. But it was something I always wanted to do. But then towards the end of my playing career, I really started laying the foundation. If I saw a farm director or scouting director, GM, I'd go up and talk to him, let him know that I was interested. That's what I wanted to do when I was done playing. So probably my last 3 or 4 years, definitely doing that. And I think that helped me land my job um, with the Phillies. Steve Novarita at the time was our farm director. And when he signed me to a minor league deal in 2006, I had told him, that's something I want to do in the future. And then after the '07 season, I reached out to a bunch of clubs, and right away, Steve offered me a job, and I thought it was the right fit for me. And turns out, 20 years later, seems to be the right fit. I've had a great run with the Phillies and love the organization. And it's hard to stay somewhere, especially in this game,
Yeah, I was
for
going to
that
say
long. So it's been great.
I was getting ready to go on the air here in August, I guess late July or August. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the Phillies were live streaming the alumni ceremony, and they was like Eric Kratz, and then the next guy was Greg Legg. I'm like, oh, that's great. Did you get to see him when he was there that day?
I did not this summer. I saw him last summer. I haven't caught up with him. And I thought when you sent me a message the other day about doing this,
Yeah.
I thought about Lager. So I got to catch up with him. I haven't caught up with him. It's hard. A lot of times they have those alumni guys running around doing all kinds of stuff prior to the game. And then I had to go out to the bullpen with the catcher, whoever that was that day. I don't remember if it was Stubby or JT. And so I waved at him and we exchanged a wave, but I didn't get a chance to catch up with him.
When fans get to Phillies game, they see you go out there with the catcher, early, you're one of the first people out, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever, before the game, right before the pitcher starts to go out. So what are you doing with the catcher, and how are you helping the catcher, in those last few minutes before the game?
Well, one of my duties is, along with coach and third, is I'm in charge of all the catching. So I'll go out there and do whatever routine that guy does. JT does some balls where we throw some balls to him. Does a throwing program where he stimulates throwing to second base a little bit. Stubbs does a thing off the machine. And then we're just there to maybe have some last minute conversations about some things. It's a spot, guys are busy all day long, especially JT. He does a lot to keep his body in tip top shape and ready to go. So might be mentioning some things that I saw in a scouting report just to refresh his memory, because then once the game starts, he's in a lot of game planning mode, and he and Caleb talk a lot because I'm running out to third base when he's in the dugout, so we don't get a lot of time to talk during the game. But I'll just mention to him, like, so and so, this guy's one of their runners. This guy gets a real big lead at second base. Look to back pick him. Just little scouting report things that we'll go over while he's stretching and stuff.
I know someday you'd like, hopefully sooner rather than later, get a chance to manage your own big league team. What have you learned in the last couple of years from Rob Thompson, as he took over the Phillies a couple of years back?
Well, I learned if you're honest with people and care about guys, which Topper is amazing. I mean, he's the most caring, honest guy I've ever met, and the players love him and respect him for that. I think that's the biggest thing. Tell them the truth again, as much as you can. You gotta tell them the truth. I think everybody respects the guy that tells them the truth. Doesn't try to beat around the bush on things. Hey, sometimes you're gonna have to have hard conversations about, this is why you're not playing. This is why you're not pitching. This is why we're sending you down. But on the other hand, you get to have those conversations of, hey, you're in the starting lineup. Hey, we called you up for this reason. But I think Topper is just a honest, great person deep down. And, the baseball side of things, he listens to everybody, takes in all the information, whether that's analytical, whether that's, from one of our coaches, whether that's from the player, and then makes the best decision that he can make. So I think that's a neat thing to see, the collaboration. And, we have a meeting every day, which I think he started. It's a medical meeting that I don't know how many more other organizations that I get to sit in on. We have a meeting about pitching prior to the game, how we're going to use our pitching. So there's just a lot of voices, and Topper is able to listen to them all and then make the best decision he can when the game comes.
You mentioned the analytical stuff. How exposed were you to that when you were finishing your playing career and early as a manager? And obviously now I don't want to say it's taken over, but it's such a critical part of how everybody plans for games and analyzes players.
Well, yeah, well, really, when I was a player still, even though it was, I guess, almost 20 years ago now, there wasn't a lot of analytical stuff. There was some information. We didn't call it analytics. We just called it information. I mean, there were certain stats we looked at to figure out what type of a hitter a guy was. I always like to look at home runs and runs scored and RBIs, and then you minus the home runs from it so that you get a total number. And if those numbers match up to one per game played, that guy's going to be a really good player. He's going to be the guy you want to stay away from in a lineup. That's just one little thing we used to look at. Now I think they have a fancy stat for it or something, but it just makes it easier to quantify things now rather than having to look up things and figure things out. But as I went through the minor leagues, we became a little bit more analytical. And then I kind of started to dive into stuff on my own. We didn't have a lot in the organization, especially those middle years, the years I was in Reading probably. So I started to dive into some websites and kind of do some research on my own because I was interested in it and needed to learn about it. Didn't really have anybody around at the time. And then when Gabe Kapler took over and Gabe made me the third base coach, we kind of went more analytical than we'd ever been prior to that in the organization. So I got to learn a lot from the ground floor because we were building an analytic department from the ground up. So it was really neat to see and for myself to learn because nobody really knew much about it. So when nobody knows much about it and you're bringing these people in to teach you, it makes it a lot easier rather than walking into a place where everybody knows about it and you're the newbie. We were all kind of new at it at the time. So I feel lucky in that capacity, but then it's grown over the last 8 years that I've been in the big leagues. And now it's just commonplace to understand what's being talked about and things like that.
Coaching third, who are some of the big outfield arms in the National League that going in? Hey, we want to kind of stay away from running on this guy unless it's pretty obvious that our guy's going to be able to make it.
Yeah, well, I would say the number one guy that everybody would think of right away is Ronald Acuna. I mean, Acuna Jr. He's when he's healthy, he's got the best arm in baseball, I think, and he's accurate, and he can, kind of deke you into thinking that he's not going to throw a ball. I can remember we had a game where I think we were down by 3 or 4. Somebody hit a fly ball to right field, and it was 300 and I don't know, 60, 70 feet. I mean, it was almost to the warning track in right center, kind of. And he kind of flat footed it and fired. I think it was JT running, and JT scored, but it was close. And you don't ever want to be in that situation late in the game where you're going to make it close to break up a rally. You need 3 runs. And JT looked at me, and I looked at him, and we got back to the dugout and said, "Are you kidding me? That shouldn't even been close." And it didn't even look like he was going to throw it. He was kind of on his heels when he caught it. He wasn't getting behind it like he was preparing to throw the ball to home. And he's got an unbelievable arm. Tatis, obviously, another guy. I'll tell you the trick is, and there's some guys with really good arms, but the guys that really trick you are the guys that are infielders that move to the outfield because they get rid of the ball really fast. And you don't have a lot of history with them throwing the ball that distance, so you don't know their accuracy. But a lot of them, they charge the ball very well, and get rid of the ball a lot faster than a typical outfielder does. So they'll trick you a little bit. I remember I'm trying to think who it was. Somebody got me with the Mets. I can't. McNeil. I think it was McNeil. One of the games when McNeil first went out there, it might have been 2019, 18. He was still a second baseman. Not a lot of video. All you could see was a couple relay throws and things like that. And he kind of came at a ball and he charged it hard and kind of looked awkward. So I sent somebody and he threw him out. And it was pretty. I mean, he threw it out by a couple steps, and I was shocked. And it kind of taught me a lesson that uh, be careful of the infielders because a lot of times they have better arms than you think they. Even though he's a second baseman, then they think they do, and they do a really good job at charging balls and aren't scared to attack a ball because they've taken so many ground balls in the infield.
All right, last question. I don't want to keep you forever. I appreciate a few minutes. The Harper home run against Suarez and the Padres in the NLCS a couple of years back. You had a great view, maybe the best view, of that hole at bat, coaching at third, left-handed hitter up. What do you remember most about that entire at bat leading into the famous home run?
Well, I get goosebumps thinking about it right now. When Harp walks to the plate, you almost know that he's going to do something. It's a weird feeling that you know that he's going to do something. Now, is that going to be a hit? But you almost know he's going to hit a ball hard. You can't say where he's going to hit it or what's the outcome's going to be, but he's going to do something. And he had a great at bat there, and then he took the changeup, I think it was, and uh, then the next pitch he hits out, I think, and I mean just the noise of the crowd and the feeling of advancing, having a chance to advance to the next round. First time in the playoffs, didn't know what to really expect. The crowds have been great. The weather was kind of iffy that day. So, I mean, just a special, special feeling. Right place, right time, right guy up there. But when he walks to the plate, almost always something special is going to happen. So it's fun to see him come up to the plate when we need it.
Uh, this time of year, you're excited to get back. What time in the off season are you kind of like, all right, I'm ready to go. I've had enough rest.
Well, it's always
I
nice
know
to
it's
be
a long
home.
year. It's a brutally
Yeah,
long year. You need a lot of rest.
yeah, it is a long year, but it's kind of something that I've done my whole life. But it's bittersweet, really. You start to get this thing inside you that says, you know what, I feel like it's time to go back to work. But on the other hand, you don't want to leave home, you don't want to leave your family, you don't want to leave your kids. So it's tough that way. But I would say probably you start watching football and you get to the AFC NFC Championship and you're leaving in a couple weeks, and I think that's when you start to kind of mentally prepare. Like, okay, you go through your head of what needs to be packed and starting to wrap up the last couple things you tried to scramble doing at home before you leave for 7 or 8 months.
Well, Dusty, it was great to catch up with you. Keep up the great work, and hopefully this is the breakthrough year for you guys. It was great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too, Greg. And thanks for everything. I appreciate it over the years. And yeah, let's get past that final hurdle this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Dusty.
You got it.